All right, this is your creation. My name is Starseed Bey. How's everyone doing? Today should be another interesting video. Again, I'm not entirely sure how this video is going to turn out because there's a lot to cover and a lot to talk about. I've been really studying a lot on more of the symbolisms of the serpent and just trying to help trying to help everybody just become more and more aware of the symbolism of the serpent, both in a positive way and a negative way, right? Because I mean, the serpent can be um, knowledge and wisdom, but the serpent can also be deception and lead you astray. So we're going to be looking at that as well as the connection to the heavenly realms, because those who lack knowledge and wisdom will perish. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let me go ahead and I'll plug myself and then we'll get going here. So if this is your first time watching me, whether it be Facebook or YouTube, I am on YouTube. I got a lot of different content on there about spirituality and different other subjects that are going on around the world. So definitely like, subscribe, share out. I'm also I have Facebook. I got a public Facebook page at facebook.com/realtalkadamstarseedbey. So definitely like the page, share it out. If you got questions, whatever, let me know. And I'm also on patreon.com/AdamStarseedBey. You can check me out on there as well. And pretty much the content I put on there is the stuff that I put on Facebook and YouTube as well. So there's different places you can check me out. So let's talk about the serpent. And man, there's just so much about it, man. No matter where you look throughout the world, there's always some kind of idols of serpents, or like humans engulfed in serpents. There's also just great big dragons that symbolize a serpent. Even on like Egypt and stuff like that, carvings of serpents, or a symbolism of the serpent, the staff of the serpent, right? I mean, even Moses had a staff as well. Just a lot of symbolisms of the serpent. And, the Bible and the church environment will teach you that the serpent is evil, and that you don't mess with the serpent. You don't question the serpent. You don't want to even be near the serpent, right? And that's kind of what they teach you. But in other cultures, and that's in the United States, right? We have a whole different culture in the United States compared to everywhere else. Everywhere else has some form of tradition, some form of ancestral respecting your elders, right? They keep the traditions. Some traditions have been led astray, and that's kind of what we're seeing with or being revealed, is that we've been led astray as well with the Bible, right? Because people need to start questioning things. People need to question what they're looking into. People need to question what they're reading. People need to question things. You can't just believe something, right? You can't be led on a belief. What is a belief? A belief is something it sparks your curiosity. You want to know if it's real. You want to know if it's true, and things of that nature. So a belief is just like a little foundation that's trying to lead you somewhere, and it can lead you astray, or it can lead you into something more, something beautiful within your life. And we really need to be mindful of that. And that's what I was talking about a couple videos ago, was being mindful of things. We have to think. We have to question. We have to be mature in what we do. You look in history, you look at what the Roman Empire did throughout history. They dominated, they forced their religion or their beliefs on the people. And if you didn't believe in that element, right? If you didn't believe in what they were doing, they'd cut you out. They would get rid of you. So they got rid of ancient teachings and technology and things like that. So we have to really realize that there's a lot of deception going on, a lot of deception. And, and those who are trying to discover Christ in their life, or those who are trying to discover a higher power, the Most High, right, or God, um, to know if it's real, or, and how God works, or how miracles work, right? Because if you have a strong faith and a personal relationship with Christ and God in your life changes drastically. But it's not just saying a prayer and everything's hunky dory. You know, some people have that natural desire of walking within the Spirit, of being led by the Spirit, by Christ, right? And they just have that natural feeling. Now there's others who don't, right? They learn about Christ, they do many studies and teachings, um, you know, teachings on how to walk with Christ, but they can't seem to grasp or get a personal relationship with Christ or God because they lack that foundation, which is that spiritual connection. A lot of people focus so much on this physical reality, the false light, or the Garden of Eden, the world of delight, um, that they're led astray, right? You look into meditation. That is the number one key way of getting closer or walking with Christ or the Most High, is through meditation, right? Praying is the same aspect. So praying and meditation is one and the same, but there's two different ways of looking at it. Praying is talking with Christ, and just listening to the words, and just it's like being blind, right? It's like being blind. You listen to your heart, you listen to your spirit, right? Meditation is a visual presentation where you can actually walk with Christ, you can walk with God, you get a visual presentation. And the Spirit's going to guide you in whatever you need to see, so it's not just a belief, right? You don't want to just believe that Christ is real. You don't want to believe that you have to go to Christ to go to heaven. You don't want to just believe that God is just out there. You want to find out. You want to see the truth. You want to know that God is real. You want to know that Christ is real. So many people get led astray because they can't see or hear, right? They can't see or hear. So if you're really seeking and searching, you want to move beyond that belief, right? The churches the churches just teach you one element, and it doesn't allow a spiritual growth. Are there churches that do teach meditation and things like that to get a more personal walk with Christ? There is, it's out there. But the majority of the churches just teach you one basic thing, and they read things on a physical level. They don't read it on a um, on a symbolic level, right? The Bible is very symbolic. It's very man, it can go so many ways. It can go so many ways. So yeah, so it's let's go ahead. I want to read Genesis here, talking about the serpent, right? Because if you were raised in a church, just like myself, raised in a Christian home, right? We were taught that the serpent was evil. We were taught that the serpent is the same as the devil and is the same as Satan, right? That's what they teach you. They're all one and the same. But it's not. It's not. And when you read through the Bible, you will see that there's different characteristics between the serpent and between Satan, right? And there's also two gods as well, which we can also label as a serpent. So we'll see where this goes, okay? So this is Genesis 3. It's a little dark in here. Let me get my light over here, man. All right. So Genesis 3. And the serpent was more crafty than any beast of the field, which the Elohims, or the Most Highs, had made. And he said to the woman, Is it true that Elohim has said, do not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we are to eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, do not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said to the woman, you shall certainly not die. For the Elohim, or the Most High, knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened. That's key word. Your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be like the Elohims, knowing good and evil. Be like the Elohims. Or if you read in the King James Version, it says that you shall be like gods. But you need to look into a deeper manner. I've talked about like the heavenly realms, and how there's different layers in the heavens. So it would be that you gain the knowledge of gods. You don't become gods. You gain the knowledge and wisdom of the gods, right? Because when we're born into this world, we forget. We forget where we came from. We're born into this realm of programs, and with a lack of spiritual teachings, we're led astray from the day we're born. So, something to think about. Let's see here. For Elohim knows that in the day you eat of it, and your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be like the Elohims, knowing good and evil. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise. And she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. They knew that they were naked because they became self-aware. And I've talked about this before. They became self-aware. So I've been watching some interesting teachings from a guy on YouTube. He really put a beautiful video together. But and how I've been talking about, the Garden of Eden. Eden translates to delight, right? To delight. How everything is pleasing to the eye, and you just follow the ways of the world. That's what we live in right now, right? This world is that false light. There are so many things that are pleasing to the eye, right? And it says, don't lust, don't follow the ways of the world, for the world will deceive you, right? There's so many things that look so very pleasing to the eye that can lead you astray from going within self, from learning more about spirit, getting more connected, losing your connection with the Most High in Christ. That's what this world will do. It will allow you to fall into temptations that lead you astray from the spirit. Lead you astray from the spirit. And you can view Earth like a school, right? Like a school. And you got all these tests. So every time that you're doing a test, you're going out there doing field work. You're doing research and you're living in life. You're making your own decisions, right? You're making your own decisions. And after you make your decisions and everything like that, that's why it's so important to pray and meditate every night or in the morning, whatever. And overlook, be the seer of your life, and pay attention to the choices that you made, right? Being your own judgment, your judgmentor, weighing your own heart. Have you been led astray? Have you been following too much of this light, right? Instead of the true light, right? This is a false light. The true light is within here. So you really have to view Earth like a school, and a testing ground to see if you can maintain that connection with Christ and the Most Highs without being led astray and just being consumed by the world. I'm not too sure where I'm going with this, but that's what we have to view it. That's where we have to view it. So when Adam and Eve, before they ate of the tree, right, the tree of knowledge and wisdom, They were just led by the world. They were led by a leader. And that's kind of how the world is, is that we have these leaders, we have these programs. Military is a good example, is you just listen to your leader and you do what we tell you. I don't want you to think. I don't want you to question. I don't want you to do any of this stuff, right? I am your God, and you just need to listen and follow me, period, right? That's the ways of the world. That's the ways of the world. And even in the Bible, there is a God that tells you don't question. Don't question. So we have to be really, really mindful and look at this in a deeper meaning. In a deeper meaning. So when Adam and Eve ate of the tree of knowledge and they were aware that they were naked, it's because they became self-aware. They were able to think for themselves. They realized that they had emotions, right? They had emotions. So that's why they realized that they were naked, because they were self-aware. They were cut off, cut off from the chain of um, the collective, the chain of the collective. If you ever watched Star Trek The Next Generation, they had the characters called the Borg. I've been talking about the Borg, and it was the same aspect. You're a collective mind hive, but when you get cut off, you feel lost, you feel alone, you become self-aware. So what do you do? What do you do, right? And that's what we have to do. We have to get cut off of this world, this false light, and reconnect back to the true collective state, right? Which would be Christ would be that link, right? We all have that Christ machine energy within, right? It says, "I'm the way, truth, and light. No one goes to the Father except through me," right? So you have to go within your I am, connect back to Christ Mashiach, which would be that Son, and then you, as a child of the Most High, can gain back that frequency or that chord back to the Most High's again. So you have to disconnect yourself from the physical mind hive, become self-aware that you're alone and that you're not of this world and things like that. You have to go back within the I am, reconnect back with the Mashiach, the Christ energy in you, and then connect back to the collective mind of the spirits of the heavenly realms, and then you're good. You won't feel lost, you won't feel alone. You'll feel connected, and you'll be one with the true light, one with the true light. So it's very deep, man. It's very deep, but only you're going to be able to discover that for yourself, through meditation and prayer, having that personal walk with Christ and the divine. Christ and the divine. Let's see here. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made loin coverings for themselves. And that's also a symbolism too. So that's what I'm researching right now. The teaching I was watching, basically, they said that when Adam and Eve became self-aware, that they descended down and that they got physical bodies, right? Physical bodies. So those physical bodies could be a representation of the fig leaves, which fig leaves could be like veins, right? The fig tree. And also loin claws, right? Loin claws is a representation of what? Of animal skin. So that would be the representation of flesh, of flesh. So, and this is where the fallen angel aspect comes into play as well, is that, and I've talked about this too, is that, we have the spirit, right? And the spirit descends down from the heavens and then goes into the fleshly body, And then we experience and we create and things of that nature. So that can be the representation of the fig leaves and the loin claws, is the physical body. It's pretty interesting, huh? Let's see. And they heard the sound of the Elohims walking about in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Elohim among the trees of the garden. And this was also interesting as well. I'm going to go ahead and probably quit reading this because it goes into a different category. So God is known as the all-seeing eye, right? God, or the Most Highs, can see everything. So when we go into this representation, that the Elohims were walking, right? They were walking, and Adam and Eve were able to hide themselves from God. Well, theoretically, that's impossible, because if you read through the Bible, you'll realize, that God sees all and knows all. So who were these? So who were these? Um, who were these Elohim that were walking in the garden, right? Who were walking in the garden. So that would mean that they had a physical form, a physical presence, that they were able to hide from the leaders of this world, right? This gets into the Sumerians and the Anunnaki and things of that nature. So it's quite fascinating. It's so symbolic on so many levels, man. Let's see. And Elohim called upon Adam and said to him, "Where are you?" And he said, "Where are you?" If it was really God, God would know where he was. And he said, "I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, so I hid myself." And he said, "Who made you know that you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree of which I commanded you that you should not eat?" And the man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate." She gave me the tree, and I ate. And the Elohim said to the woman, "What is this you have done?" And the woman said, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." The serpent deceived me, and I ate. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and quit reading that, because it turns into a whole different thing. But I'll kind of touch on it too, because it basically, I can't be on here too long. But basically, as you read on, it talks about the serpent and how it gets cursed to live among the lands, right? It gets cursed to live among the lands. Well, what do? We live among the lands. We trust that the land or the earth will take care of us, right? And where does our food and nourishment come from? It comes from what? It comes from the ground. We get our garden, we get our vegetations from the dirt, the dust of the land. And we have to work with the dust of the land. So it's very symbolic. It's very symbolic. So, we are in a way the serpents, right? Because we are eating from the dust. We are from the dust. And dust can also be a representation of DNA, of our genetics. Even, I'm going to go ahead and put this down here. Even the serpent symbolism can also be of the sperm. Because if you look at a sperm, it looks just like what? It looks like a serpent. So, so that's the same element. Is the serpent is what? The body. And that's what the sperm is. It is the body. So the serpent, or the sperm, which is your body, goes into the woman's egg, right? Goes into the woman's egg. But to make that serpent come alive, right? That body come alive, it needs a soul. So the soul, the fallen angel, comes through the heavens and goes into the womb. And once the serpent and the soul join together, you got life. That's why I've been talking about this through my videos, is you got life. So we are the serpent. And we have a responsibility in this life to make decisions and choices that affect our spiritual, or our soul essence, or soul essence. And I'm probably just going to keep talking about the serpent, because I'm doing some research on the heavenly realms. I really got some interesting perceptions on it. But as a whole, that's what the serpent is. The serpent can go in so many ways, and just like in our life, we have that awareness to be a rising serpent, wise up and rise up, right? You know, for the to make the best version of you, or we have the choice to be that treacherous serpent, that deceitful serpent, um, that is just lives by the way of the world and lives by the ways of human doctrine, um, or listening to humans, right? Listening to humans, totally trying to lead you astray from the connection of Christ or the Most High. It goes in two ways. It goes in two ways. And the teaching that I was uh, listening to was talking about on how when we become into a physical body, right? When you come into a physical body, there's three layers, the Trinity. There's three layers that we have to go through. So once we go into a physical body, right? Physical body is a trial. It's a trial, a tribulation. And we have a path when we're down here in this physical reality. We have a path that we signed up for. Do we remember it? No, we don't. We have to discover it. So, and that's where we have to discover the serpent within us, right? And if you look out through history, I'm trying to get this together here. If we look out through history, they always talks about the serpent, the serpent, the serpent, the serpent. How we need to become one with the serpents. Egyptians, they always dress themselves as the serpent, which is a representation of knowledge and wisdom. And what did the Egyptians bring to the table? They had advanced technologies. There's technologies that they had that even scientists can't even fathom how they did it, right? And they also knew about the the realms afterlife, right? They knew about that. They preserved the bodies. They talked about reincarnation of souls. They talked about stargates and other beings or guardians that uh, that were the stepping stones in these heavenly realms. Like each heaven has its own guardian, its own representation, and that's kind of what the Egyptians were all about. It was about knowledge and wisdom, right? Knowledge and wisdom. And for some odd reason, the founding fathers, right, the Europeans and the Romans, and blah 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 blah, try to keep this away from us. They try to keep us away from our spiritual connection, our spiritual awareness. It's out there, and the ancient teachings are coming back, but we have to bring it back in a way, in a modern way, for the people to understand it better, because we have been so deceived in this world of delight. We've been so deceived of this false light, or Satan, which is the adversary, the Antichrist. This world is the Antichrist. It's not one person, it's the world. The world is in Antichrist. It goes against the Spirit. It goes against our divine presence or divine awareness, right? Our divine awareness. So we really have to look at it as a whole, that the serpent is a representation of knowledge and wisdom. That's it. That's it. And we have to look into the awakening process of that divine awareness through meditation, right? That meditation aspect is awakening our spirit body, right? We got four bodies. We got the physical body, the mental body, the mind body, the emotional body, and the spirit body, right? The spirit body. And we have to reactivate the spirit body, because we weren't taught this. We had to reactivate the spirit body, and that would be the Kundalini awakening or the Kundalini rising, right? And the spine or in the umbilical cord is very symbolic of that. It's very symbolic. And if you study meditation, go through meditation, you learn how the energy works, right? Everything starts from the ground. You plant your feet in the ground, becoming a tree. and you allow that energy to rise in you, to rise up in you, just like the rising of the serpent. So, and you'll feel it through your back, and you'll feel it emerge, because what it's doing is that the spinal cord connects to your pineal gland. Again, you do research on the serpent, you're also going to discover the pine cones that are everywhere on on the uh, on the carvings on the walls and statues and whatever is the pine cone. What's the pineal gland? Which again is the serpent, the knowledge and wisdom, right? The knowledge and wisdom, and we have to gain that knowledge and awareness. So it gets real deep on so many levels, man. I got to keep this simple. I got to get off here soon. But knowledge and wisdom, we have to gain that back. It's symbolic. You know, you don't worship the serpent. The ancient ancestors put serpents on the walls and everywhere in the world as a symbolic for knowledge, symbolic of knowledge, a symbolic of the spinal cord, right? Of the spinal cord. That's the only way that they could really be like, all right, so we know that the world and humans can be very deceptive. We know that humans are going to fight amongst each other. How can we keep our teachings, because if they burn the books and things of that nature, how can we keep our teachings pure and simple in a way for humanity to understand what the symbolism of the serpent is? What the symbolism of the serpent is. That's why throughout the world they have the serpent with a human inside to have that representation, right? The serpent is always behind. The serpent is always behind symbolism of the spinal cord. And the head, right? The head, they always have a face sticking outside the mouth of the serpent, right? The mouth of the serpent. So we really have to be mindful of that. And it also reminds me of how Christ was talking about on how, hey, Satan, get behind me. Satan, get behind me. The adversary, right? The adversary. So, you know, even Christ was teaching us that we have to look behind. We have to look behind for knowledge and awareness. Knowledge and awareness, right? When we're self-aware that our adversary or Satan is trying to control our lives, we have to grab Satan and throw him behind. Throw him behind. No matter what it may be, any kind of emotional or ego experience you have, right? You know, the ego of anxiety. You need to grab it and set it aside. You don't want it to get ahead of you. You want it to stay behind you or walk beside you. You know, you got to keep your life balanced. You got to keep your life balanced. So, you know, that's a secret symbolism of the serpent. And do research on the serpent. Do research on all the different cultures about the serpent. You're going to learn a lot. And you have to learn on it and look at it from a symbolic standpoint. Because that's what the Bible talked about, is that humans lost the teachings. And for some weird reason, these leaders or these perceived fallen angels or gods, right? Because we've had perceived other beings, it's written on the wall, deceive the people. So they felt they had to do blood sacrifices to please the gods in the heavens, and they used the blood, right? And it was all misunderstood, right? The blood is symbolic. The blood is symbolic of life. You don't shed blood. Blood is symbolic. And there's a scripture I'm going to read here that symbolizes that. But blood is symbolic. Blood is within you. You know, everything, the symbol is within you. That church is within you. Everything you need is within you. You don't need to perform some kind of ritual outside self. All the rituals are performed within you. Within you. It's all symbolic. It's all symbolic, you know. And when our ancient ancestors made all these idols, perceived idols or artifacts of the serpents, well, as the world changed and maybe the ancients left, right? You know, there's a saying that the Mayans and all the ancient ancestors just disappeared off the face of the earth, right? So they say that humans started over again. So, you know, we didn't really have much to go with. We just assumed that these were gods. You know, you look at the Egyptians, you know, you would think, oh, they must have been worshiping these gods or these idols, so now we need to make idols too. So, because that's what our ancient ancestors did. So we need to make idols too to please the gods. We got to perform rituals and things like that. It was so misunderstood, man. It was so misunderstood. So we're bringing back these ancient souls are going into bodies, right? Going into bodies to help you guys rise up and wise up, right? We're here to rise you guys up to become the best version of you, but also bring back the ancient teachings in a way that the world can understand better. This is deep stuff, man. This is deep. So yeah. So let's go ahead. We'll read some scriptures here, and then I got to get out of here. But let me find that one scripture real quick, because it's definitely very interesting. Let's see here. All right, so John 6:55 through 59. For my flesh, and this is Christ talking, for my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. Whoever feeds on my flesh, we're talking about Christ, and drinks of my blood abides in me, and I in him. As the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father. So whoever feeds on me, he also will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. Bread is symbolic, and I definitely do a teaching on that. Bread, this is the bread that came down from heaven, not like the bread the fathers ate and died. Whoever feeds on this bread will live forever. Jesus, or Christ, said these things in the synagogue as he taught at the Capernaum. And, you know, Christ, he taught this stuff in the synagogue of what? Synagogue of Satan, or the Antichrist, you know. And that's what we do, you know, is that we're presenting the ancient teachings through the synagogue of this world, which is ran by Satan, the adversary, the Antichrist. So this is very symbolic, and this is why I talked about and how our ancestors who misunderstood the teaching of our true ancestors. So if you read this, that my flesh is the true food, right? A lot of secret societies and rituals take that as human flesh, right? Take that as human flesh because they lack that spiritual awareness. And the drinking of my blood is uh, the true drink. So again, blood is symbolic of what? Symbolic of the Spirit of Christ, the Spirit of Mashiach, that anointing of the Spirit, right? It's all about the Spirit. It's not about this physical reality. This physical reality will deceive you, man. It's crazy. And whoever feeds on my flesh, the Spirit of Christ, and drinks of my blood, anointed of the Spirit, abides in me, and I in him. Like I said, we're all born with this Christ energy. It's not something that you're given. It's already there. You just have to remember it and discover that guiding tool within you. That guiding tool within you. You have guardians and guides that protect you and guide you. And the symbolic of the bread is of the Spirit too. And you know, it talks about unleavened bread, and that you have to eat the unleavened bread, because if you eat bread with yeast in it, and yeast has what? Enzymes, bacteria, whatever. It's symbolic of allowing spirits or the false spirits to consume your body. So you want to have that pure essence. You know, you don't want to be led astray from the world. You don't want to be listening to all these perceived gurus and things like that, right? The bread is very symbolic in the Bible as well. That's why Christ said he speaks in parables, because those who seek knowledge and wisdom will begin to be more in tune, and they will begin to fully understand a real personal walk with Christ and God, So it's very important, man. that we discover that. Man, I'm running out of time here. So let's go ahead. We're going to read a couple scriptures here about the flesh. Again, like I said, flesh is representation of the serpent. Um, so Galatians 5:19 through 21. Now the works of the flesh are evident, right? We're aware of the awareness of how this fleshly body can consume us and lead us astray from the spirit within. Now the works of the flesh are evident: sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, adultery, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions or deception, divisions, envy, drunkenness, um, uh, things of that nature. And things like this, I warn you, as I warned you before, that those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. You follow the ways of the world and the ways of the flesh, you will never gain that personal connection with Christ and the Most High. You won't. You will die. You will die of the flesh because you live of the flesh. Galatians 5:16. But I say, walk by the Spirit or Christ, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. You will not live by the flesh. Um, if you're living by the Spirit and you're walking with Christ and you're living your life through Christ, you're not going to fall. You're going to be made aware. You'll be, uh, the serpent will try to persuade you, right? Will try to persuade you because the serpent is knowledge and wisdom, but also a way to deceive you as well. So just be very aware of that. Romans 8:6. For to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the spirit is life and peace. Your life will be filled with abundance and a sense of um, purity because your spirit is being filled up. It's being filled. It's being purified. You're gaining that connection back to the Most High, and your life has changed. You have new eyes and you have new ears to see the world for what it is. For the world for what it is. Like I said, this is Satan's playground. This is Satan's playground. We can bring heaven on earth, but we cannot turn earth into heaven because that's not what this earth is about. This earth is to test us. And then it goes on so many levels. I definitely want to talk about this sacred place a lot more. But it's crazy, man. Hey, how's it going, Judy? She says, thank you. This is how I was taught from my elders, and you explained it as I was told. Awesome, awesome. So yeah, we gotta not live by the ways of the flesh. We got to live by the way of the Spirit. And that is with knowledge and awareness. You gotta have that knowledge and awareness. You gotta eat of the fruit. The fruit is what? The fruit is symbolic of be fruitful. And be fruitful and expand the world, right? We think that it's talking about children, that we need to give birth to lots of children. But no, it's symbolic. The fruit is I'm getting chills from this, but the fruit is symbolic of spreading that knowledge and awareness of the heavenly realms, that knowledge and awareness of what Christ is, the anointing of the Spirit, becoming connected again. We have to disconnect. We have to disconnect ourselves from the world first. We have to get into that state of loneliness, that state of wondering what we are, who we are, where we fit in, and we have to discover Christ, right? Christ is that foundation. I've talked about that. Christ is my foundation. That go home to place. You got to have a go home to place. If you don't have that, you're going to continue to rely on the flesh. You're going to continue to rely on the idols of the world. You have to have a personal relationship, and that is that Christ energy within you to get to the Most High, right? Christ is known as the Son, right? We are known as the children of the Elohim, but we have to connect back to that. Once you connect back with Christ, and Christ is that guiding light back to the Most High, then you won't feel alone anymore. You'll feel connected again. You'll feel that divine love and that divine purpose of what we are. It's that true connection. It's not the false light. It's that true connection. We have to disconnect from the world to gain back our sovereign rights with the Most Highs again. And it's a process. It's those who care about their life. It's those who are not led astray in this world. Man, it gets so deep, and the world is not going to fully grasp that. But that's why we're bringing back the ancient teachings in a modern way. In that we have to question what has been led here, right? Question the Bible. That is the ultimate test right now with a lot of people, right? Because those who think that they're spiritually um, connected with Christ are going to be in for an awakening. Going to be in for an awakening. That knowledge is being presented out there now. A lot of people are having visions and dreams, prophetic dreams, right? Of how to connect back with Christ, how to connect back with God. It's an internal self-discovery. And what better way for, and this gets deep here, but what a better way for the higher self, right? The higher self or Christ to present that to you through dreams. Through dreams. I had a dream uh, this morning about my house. I was in a house and I was surrounded. Like there's literally, this house was going to be covered underwater. But here was the kicker, is that I was fully prepared. I was like, okay, well, we'll see what we can do to not make the water come in. But at the end of the day, the water's going to come in. Well, the water crystallized. It became ice. It became frozen. So I was waiting, and I was still waiting. And I was like, what in the world's going on? I mean, the water was way above this building, right? And I was just continuing waiting. I was like, what in the world? But it was symbolic. It was symbolic. Crystal is a symbolic of what? Of the Christ energy. We're learning how to become crystal beings, light beings. And the house that I was in, right? That would be my soul. My body was in the body, right? I was my soul in the house, which would be this physical body, and the crystal energy, or that Christ energy, is beginning to engulf the temple or the body. It's beginning to engulf the body. So the representation of Christ is coming onto the earth in a different way, because water is symbolic. Water is symbolic of what? When we're in the womb, right? This is getting deep here. When we're in the womb, we are surrounded by what? The waters. We're surrounded by the waters. And water is what? Water gives life to everything. Water gives life to us. Water gives life to the plants and to the earth, right? Water is symbolic of growth and of change, and that's what that dream was about. It's very deep. It's very deep, and I was self-aware of it, right? In that dream, I was self-aware of, like, what in the world kind of water is this? It was that crystal water. It was that Christ energy coming onto the world. So it's deep, and that's how the Spirit will show you through dreams. That's why you have to pay attention to your dreams. That's why you have to pay attention to everything that's going on outside self to get you back to go within. Man, it gets so deep, but only those who seek knowledge and wisdom will um, will further into that spiritual path or that spiritual walk. It's not going to be handed to you. Nothing gets handed to you. You have to work for it. Just like in a job. If you want to be promoted, or even just getting a job, right? You have to clean your life up. You have to present yourself in a clean manner. You have to be respectable. You have to be mature. You're never going to get in life if you're not mature and you're not growing in knowledge and wisdom, right? Knowledge and wisdom is key. It's something you don't push away. You got to question everything. You got to respect your elders, those who are leading you more into a better life. That's what I'm all about, is discovering the best version of you. The best version of you. That should always be your goal, is to be the best version of you. There's so many people that say, well, I am what I am, I do what I do, right? They have they have set that mantra that they don't want to go any higher. They don't want to go any higher in life. They accept their faults. They accept that they may fall down, whatever it may be. They don't want to be the best version of them. So they have that lacking of that there's something more in their life. They just want to just be where they're at. A lot of times people get scared. When you grow spiritually, are you going to lose friends? You will. You will. Um, but you also gain friends too. This is your walk. This is your path. And I think we're going to go ahead and end this video on this. This is your walk and path. Okay? This is your life, period. So many people look for acceptance from the world. They want to be accepted. They don't want to be lost. They don't want to feel lonely. They want to be accepted into this world. Well, that's the deception. That's the deception to get you astray and lead you away from your rights. Lead you away from your sovereign self. Right? This is all eye candy. This is the Eden. This is that delightful, deceitful place, that false light that leads you astray. Do we live once here? We do. We do. Do we want to have the best experience here? We do. Right? But we have to be mindful in what we're doing. You live by the ways of the world, you're going to die by the ways of the world. You're going to die by the ways of the world. And this affects you. This affects your soul. This affects your soul on a lot of levels. And this is why it says, you look to the reincarnation aspect of things. It's reincarnation even talked about in the Bible. Where you fell astray. You fell astray. Your soul did not learn. It didn't grow. Your soul didn't mature the way it needed to. So we have to go through it again and again and again until you go home. Until you go home. That's what that Christ is. That's why our ancient ancestors showed us about the sun. The sun. The sun. And then later on, they began to worship the sun, right? But the sun is symbolic of in here. The sun is symbolic of that Mashiach energy, or that Christ energy. It's symbolic. It's symbolic. That was the only way our ancestors could talk about the spirit or the soul, was the sun. Be like, all right, how are these humans going to understand that there is a spirit that dwells within them, a divine source, a spark, a light source? Oh yeah, there's the sun outside. It's so bright we can't even look into it because it will burn our eyes. All right, let's use the sun as a symbolism of the divine spirit or the divine source, our soul. Let's use that. And where does the sun? The sun rises, right? The sun rises and it goes over our head, right? The sun always goes above us and we have to look up. Look up and we see that sun. And when we look up, what are we looking at? We're looking at the heavens. We're looking at the universe, but it is known back in the ancient times as the heavens. So we're looking at the heavenly realm. So to get back into the heavenly realm, we have to go through the sun. We have to go through the sun. Symbolic, man. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this. This is good stuff, man. So yeah, man. So at the end of the day, we have to go back to the sun, which is the I am within, to get back to that connection to the heavenly realms. And the best way to do that is we have to gain that knowledge and awareness, which is the serpent. We have to learn from the serpent. We have to be like the serpent. We're already the serpents, right? This body is a serpent. This body is the beast. So, man, this is insane, man. But it's awesome too. It's so amazing on what you discover when you become self-aware and you just begin to question and you learn and grow. You don't just stop learning. You don't stop learning. That's what religion has taught us. You believe in a certain thing, you don't question it, you don't think outside the box. And there's so many different layers that goes with that. You look through Freemasons or you look through different other cultures, right? Different other cultures. And a lot of these cultures have been led astray, right? Because of that that lacking of spiritual development, that spiritual growth, right? The Buddhas are about the only ones that really keep that true spiritual connection. But it's in a box, so we have to utilize the teachings of the Buddha and bring it back because that is the ancient teachings of our ancestors. That's we have that ability as a Buddha too. That's what meditation is to go within self, to connect back with the sun, right? Because we can't connect back to the Most Highs or God without the sun. Symbolic, man, symbolic. That's what Christ was all about, was symbolisms and parables. That's why Christ said to go through me. He used himself because he realized that the world would be ran by idols. He used himself, and it gets deep. He used himself as the sun, follow the teachings of Christ, the I am, to get back to the Most Highs in Christ. So yeah, so I'll go ahead and leave it on that, man. This was definitely very interesting, and this is how this is how you bring this stuff out. It's every time before I do a podcast, I say a prayer. I say a prayer um, to bring forth, not human knowledge, but to bring forth the spirit that is within that divine source. Um, because we can be led astray by the flesh. We can be led astray by the flesh. That's why I always say, don't look at me as somebody that has a lot of knowledge and awareness, right? Because I'm learning right with you guys. When you look at me, just listen to the words that are coming out. Listen to the voice. And use that with your research. Use that with your research. Oh, Adam talked about serpents. Okay, I'm going to do research on the serpents. Let's learn about the ancient teachings of the serpents, right? Adam talked about Christ and the Messiah energy. Okay, well, let's go look into that. Don't put me on a pedestal. Don't use this image, because this image will deceive you. Listen to what I said and go out and do your research. Go out on your spiritual journey. That is what this is all about. That's what a lot of these guru people will not teach you, is that this is your spiritual journey. You have to do the work. You have to do the work. You have to go within yourself. You have to fill up your cup with that divine spirit, that Christ Messiah energy. You have to do all this work. You have to do it. No matter, I could talk until I'm blue in the face, and it's not going to do you any good unless if you're doing the work. So discover that divine presence. Get back connected with the Spirit. Get back connected with that Messiah energy within you. Christ is not a religion. That is what human doctrines have deceived you with. Christ is that source, is that sun within you to get back and connect back to the heavenly realms, the Most Highs. It gets deep on so many levels. That's why you have to do the work yourself. You have to disconnect yourself from the ways of the world. And it's hard. It's hard because this false light world, this Garden of Eden here, there's a lot of stuff that's pleasing to the eye. There's a lot of stuff that is pleasing to the ears. There's a lot of books that are pleasing to the eyes, but it leads you astray, man. It leads you astray. Hey, how's it going, Chris? So this world will lead you astray. So you got to get back connected, man. You got to get back connected to the Son, which is the Christ, and get back to the connection with the Most High. So I got to end it with that. So love yourself. Keep shining bright. It's time to connect again. If you got any questions, let me know. Definitely leave feedback, comments, and whatever it may be. But yeah, it's time to come back home, man. Time to come back home. So love yourself. Keep shining bright. I'll talk to y'all later.